So the talk for today is education in the 21st century. I'll talk a bit about 21st century skills, the Cambridge assessment, and the Sarawak perspective. So broadly speaking, the format of my presentation will be divided. First section, what are 21st century skills? Second one will be the Cambridge International Curriculum or the Cambridge Pathway. And the third one will be Ministry of Education, Science and Technological Research, 5 international secondary schools project in Sarawak. How this will taper and fit into the curriculum. So I'll start with what is considered 21st century skills. There is a broad argument for so-called 21st century skills. If you look at the world, it's a global economy, highly international, multicultural, interconnected. There's seismic advances in ICT, quite often in excess of it. I think we get a lot of information overload. Then economies of developed countries have shifted from a basis of material goods and services to information and knowledge. So people call it the knowledge economy more than anything else. And if you look at it, the current emphasis is on use of information over possession of facts and figures. How do we optimize the use of information, the data that we have? So the challenge to us, the characteristics of the modern world, there's information overload, constant change in an uncertain or VUCA world. People use this word VUCA to indicate that it's a vulnerable, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. So we look at the speed of change, the challenges of the modern world, multiple careers. This phrase I think here quite often, no longer a job for life. Importance of interdisciplinary understanding based on rigorous disciplinary understanding to solve problems. Then adaptability and creativity needed for the individual and society to succeed. So these are the characteristics of the modern world. And we look at the challenges of 21st century education. This is defined by OECD, this Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, United Nations body. And this quotation, I think you're quite tired of. I think it's been quoted many times, but in the light of today's lecture, because we talk about 21st century skills, so I just read this very quickly. A generation ago, teachers could expect that what they thought would last their students a lifetime. Today, because of rapid economic and social change, schools have to prepare students for jobs that have not yet been created, technologies that have not yet been invented, and problems that we don't know will arise. We don't yet know will arise. And this is a quotation from Andreas Schleicher, OECD Education Directorate, the case for 21st century learning. And I go down a little bit more. The OECD proposed students should be introduced to, number one, new ways of thinking, including creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, and decision making. New ways of working, including new forms of collaboration and communication. Using new tools for working, including capacity to harness the potential of new technologies. And success will go to those individuals and countries that are swift to adapt, slow to resist, and open to change. The task of educators, that's what we are talking about today, the task of educators and policymakers is to help countries rise to this challenge. Lecture, yes. So when we look at what are 21st century skills, people use it very loosely. There is no single widely accepted definition. So the more common ones, the literature contains hundreds of overlapping descriptors of the skill set. If you Google 21st century skills, you will find there are so many definitions of it. But I'll just highlight a few. We talk about life skills, applied skills, non-cognitive skills, interpersonal skills, workforce skills, to name a few of these 21st century skills. And this ATC is, I think, is assessment and teaching of 21st century skills. This is a project by the European Union, yeah, and it's headquartered, I think, in the University of Melbourne, if I remember correctly. So they talk about, they divided category and skills. So we look at ways of thinking. So we look at creativity, innovation, critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, learning to learn, or metacognition. And then we look at ways of working. How do we work nowadays? Communication, collaboration, teamwork. Tools for working. So this ITH, information literacy, and also ICT literacy. And then we talk about how do we live in the modern world. In this world, it's globalized world. So we talk about citizenship, local and global, life and career, personal and social responsibility. So broadly speaking, this is a very simple graphic presentation of 21st century skills. And then what are the different approaches to developing 21st century skills in school? So we look at developing a broad and balanced curriculum. Yeah. Subjects identify learning objectives that support development of 21st century skills and competencies and higher order thinking skills. So we have to look at assessment objectives, instruments, and practices that support this development of 21st century skills. Yeah. So it will include curriculum components that focus on creative, critical, and analytical thinking. So we have for extended projects. In Cambridge, we have these global perspectives as well. Yeah. And we also have to look at the informal curriculum. Some people call it non-formal curriculum. So we look at school culture, ECA or extracurricular activities, community service. They are just as important. Yeah? And then we come to the international curriculum. Yeah? How good is good? What do we consider a good curriculum? So this is called the Cambridge pathway. So we call it the Cambridge International Curriculum, where we start from Cambridge Primary, moving to lower secondary into upper secondary or IGCSE into A levels. Yeah? So for primary, we have basic subjects like English, Math, Science, and ICT, and we introduced 4 additional subjects year before last, same with lower secondary. And if you look at it, yeah, every curriculum is actually fit for the purpose. There is no single curriculum that's good for everybody. So when we look at a curriculum, there are curriculums and curriculums. Yeah, so you can never really look at one curriculum that fits all. So depending on the context, depending on the environment that you are working in, so you adopt a curriculum that best suits your context. Yeah? So that is a very important part. Yeah? So for the Cambridge curriculum, it's very well structured. The progression is good in a way. Yeah, and then so we look at the Cambridge curriculum right from primary 1 to even A levels. Yeah. And in order to define, I always like to define what is considered a good curriculum. Yeah? I remember when I was doing my literature during my varsity days, yeah, I had a lot of problem understanding poetry. So I once asked my poetry teacher, because we were doing English lit, yeah, how do I visualize the autumn leaves? And we were doing Wordsworth, the Romantics. And coming from a hot tropical country, it's very difficult to really have a good grasp of poetry. So I remember I asked my poetry teacher, what is good poetry? So the lecturer took a while to list to think about it, and then so he replied, it is very difficult to define good poetry, but I can tell you what is bad poetry. But that's not what I answered. That's not the answer I wanted. Yeah? So here I will attempt to define what is considered a good curriculum. Definitions are very important. Yeah? So when we look at what is considered a good curriculum, from the Cambridge perspective, we look at 3 elements. Number 1, how well does it prepare students for higher education? A good curriculum prepares students well for higher education. Number 2, how well does it prepare you for careers or your workplace? And number 3, how well does it prepare you for future lives? So this is the Cambridge perspective. So when we look at it, I also put in a 4th dimension from having been involved in education for over a long period of time, I would call it a good curriculum must also have a universal appeal. In other words, it transcends ethnic, religious, cultural, and regional differences. So we call it a global citizen, yeah, preparing them to be a global player. And if you look at the Ministry of Education, about 2 months back, they introduced a new subject called Global Citizenship Education, which is a good subject. Yeah? And the closest one to Cambridge is global perspectives. So there's a fourth dimension in a way when we look at a good international curriculum. So I just elaborate a little bit more on the three key elements to consider. Preparation, number one, for higher education. So how do we prepare students for higher education? We have to develop, number one, deep subject knowledge. It's very, very important that you have good content knowledge, good subject knowledge. Some people call it pedagogical content knowledge. Number two, conceptual understanding. Understanding concepts is a very important part of developing skills understanding. Yeah, so we taught the two parts, knowledge and skills. In between knowledge and skills, how do you apply? How do you make use of these two in order to solve problems? Yeah? So there's conceptual understanding, and the third one, you have to develop higher order thinking skills. I think you're quite tired of it. Yeah, people call it HOTS, HOTS. Yeah, so but you can't run away from it. Yeah, higher order thinking skills. So if you look at these three, you are actually preparing the students well for higher education. Then how do you prepare them for careers? You have to develop current and relevant subjects. There has got to be a wide choice and flexibility of combinations. So in Cambridge, we recommend a broad and balanced curriculum. I always call it a B and B curriculum. And from my work experience, I added another element. I call it the enlightening curriculum as well. There should be a good combination of hard and soft skills. So people quite often ask me, Mr. Ng, what is enlightening to you may not be enlightening to me. So how would you define that? So I often tell them, I would like to define what I mean by enlightening. I say, in order for a subject to be enlightening, it has to fulfill two criteria. First one, I say, what you learn, you use for life. If I learn to play basketball, most probably I'm going to use it for life. If I learn how to play a guitar, most probably I'll use it for life. If I learn how to do a spreadsheet, most probably I'm going to use it for life. If I learn French, most probably I'm going to use it for life. So that is the first aspect. That is what a skill that you learn, you use it for life. Number two, what you learn will reach your soul, S-O-U-L. It will touch your soul. Literally speaking, it will also touch your soul as well, S-O-L-E. It will reach right to your bottom in a sense that you will find that, let's say if you read Julius Caesar, one of my favorite Shakespeare's plays, you read it when you're in Standard 6. You read it again when you're in Form 5. You read it again when you're in the university. You read it again when you graduate. You read it again when you get married or start your first job. You'll find that at each level of your life, it has got different associations for you, different meanings for you. And to me, that is an enlightening subject. So that's my broad definition of enlightening. And it has got to be a good combination of hard and soft skills. So if we look at the KBSN skills, emphasis on hard skills a lot, but not much soft skills. So that's where the international curriculum will fit in. So the third one, preparing you for future lives. How do we prepare you for future lives? So at the school level, the Cambridge curriculum will strive, is embedded inside it, 5 very powerful and highly desirable learner attributes or habits, which will inspire students to love learning, which will in turn help them to achieve success in school, higher education, the workplace, and life in general. So what are these 5 powerful learner attributes? I'll share with you. The first one we embedded into the Cambridge curriculum is the confident learner. You can only be confident if you have a good subject knowledge in working with information ideas that were secure in their knowledge, the confident learner. Then be the responsible learner. Be responsive and be responsible for your own learning. Take ownership of your learning, set targets, and insist on intellectual integrity. The third attribute will be the reflective learner, always reflecting, how can I become a better student? How can I improve my learning ability? How can I improve my understanding? The reflective learning. Reflective is always very good in life. And the fourth attribute will be the innovative learner. So innovative learner, when we talk about just now when we talk about IT challenges, the digital literacy, the digital world, you have to be the innovative learner, equipped with new and future challenges, meeting new challenges resourcefully, creatively, and imaginatively. And the fifth attribute is be the engaged learner. So in other words, you engage the society, you engage in the world in order to make a difference to the world. Be involved in community work. How do you ask yourself, how can I make this world a better place? How can I make society, how can I make my community a better place after I've learned all the knowledge? And I think in line with the theme of these Sarawak initiatives, yeah, I like the theme of it, for a better Sarawak. Yeah? Even though my office in Kuala Lumpur, but I have been into Kuching, into Sarawak countless times. I started my first trip into Kuching in 1982, when I was still in the Ministry of Education. And since then, I've not stopped going into Sarawak, yeah, to help out with the education sector. So be the engaged learner as well, contribute, see how best you can help your community and your state to grow, and your country as well. Yeah. So when we look at the Cambridge curriculum, I talk about the primary curriculum. So we have the primary curriculum and the lower secondary. So in 2019, we introduced four new subjects: art and design, PE, music, and digital literacy, which is very important. So we have lower primary checkpoint and lower secondary checkpoint, which is like UPSR and PT3. So you get a statement of achievement and performance report. Yeah? Then I will talk a little bit about IGCSE. This is IGCSE when we move in this, it's like SPM. We started IGCSE in 1988, taken in over 170 countries, offered by University of Cambridge, which is a not-for-profit organization. Very modern syllabuses, I mentioned just now. Suitability for all students, taught as a core and extended curriculum, and there's international recognition. So this is very important. IGCSE has widespread international credibility as an international qualifications, acceptance by universities and colleges around the world for admission into pre-U program or matriculation, example A-levels, IB diploma, South Australian matriculation, and so on. Yeah? So it's got very good recognition into a pre-U program. That is IGCSE. But I just want to talk a little bit more on the subject grouping, because just now I mentioned about the three what they call the okay, my apologies just now, yeah. So I clicked too fast. So we talk about the Cambridge curriculum. We have 6 groupings in this IGCSE, 70 over subjects for you to choose from. So there's a creative and professional, mathematics, sciences, English lit and English language and lit, various languages from first language to second language to foreign language. And there is also humanities and social sciences. Yeah? So if you remember just now, I talked about broad, balanced, and an enlightening curriculum. Yeah. So broad and balanced. Broad means you select from various groupings. Yeah. And you balance the sciences and the arts, soft and hard skills. Yeah. So, but I just want to share with you what I consider as enlightening subject. Yeah. So as I mentioned just now, art and design to me is very enlightening. Yeah. You learn how to weave a basket. You learn calligraphy. You learn manuscript writing. You most probably use it for life. Yeah? If you talk to an artist and you don't do art, the artist will tell you you don't know what you're missing in life. And I've never been good at art. Yeah, so I realized what I've been missing out in art and design. Then people talk about nowadays. There's always a focus. You attend a lot of talks. Yeah, there's a focus on STEM. Yeah, STEM. Yeah, science, technology, engineering, and maths. Yeah, but they don't realize that where do you derive STEM from? Yeah. Without STEAM, STAM, you can't get STEM. The art is very important. And without stream, STREAM, you can't get STEAM. Reading is a very important aspect of knowledge gathering. Yeah? So when we look at it, don't forget, if you have a balanced curriculum, you look at stream, STEAM, and also STEM. Yeah? Not one single curriculum is good for the country. Yeah? Art is actually very important. Then we look at ICT. You can't run away from IT literature, digital literacy. Drama is also very important because it inculcates, it nurtures public speaking confidence. Yeah? And we look at music. Yeah? How many of our state schools teach music properly? They don't emphasize music. And I wish I could read music notes, but I never had the opportunity to do so. I grew up in a kampong, poor family, so never had the opportunity. Until now, I cannot read music notes. I wish I could play. I could play what they call the guitar in a very professional way, but I can't do that. Yeah. So physical education is very important. Yeah. We look at nowadays kids. Yeah. Sports and the traditional maths and maths, then the sciences, biochem physics, and then English language and lit. Yeah. So this is my favorite subject, English literature. So if you don't do literature, you don't know what you're missing. Yeah. And day before yesterday, I just happened to just log into the BBC News channel, and the broadcaster, the newscaster was interviewing a very famous Nigerian author whose name is spelled Wolesyoinka. And I was so glad that when during my varsity, my literature lecturers introduced me to this writer, this author. And if not for him, I wouldn't even know how to pronounce his name. He's Wolesyoinka. Yeah? So you have to really look at literature. Then you know the world of literature is very inspiring and enlightening. And we look at languages. So I remember just now when we saw the video clip, they talk about school of the future. We talk about multilingualism. So in an international school, you not only focus on bilingualism, you focus on multilingualism. Yeah. So we have the Cambridge curriculum is divided into first language, second language, and foreign language. Yeah? So there are a lot of subjects you can choose from Arabic, Chinese, Malay. We introduced first language Malay in September 2019. The first exam is June this year. German is quite a lot of interest in German because students go to Germany for free higher education. And there's also Mandarin, second language, Japanese, French. And humanities, this is a very important subject, a good subject, global perspectives. Yeah? Global perspectives will develop global citizenship. It will also develop 21st century skills, research, a lot of high order thinking skills, critical skills, creative writing, extensive reading, and so on. Yeah. So global perspective is a good subject to look at. Yeah? And in May, June, we had Malay as a first language. And Malay as a first language is only for Malaysia. 5 years back, it took us 5 years to get Cambridge approved Malay as a first language for Malaysia. Yeah? So if examined for the first time in June this year. Yeah? Okay. So IGCSE, you can take it twice a year, in May, June, and in November. The skills-based curriculum uses a wide range of assessment as well, from exams to orals to practicals, project, and coursework. So it's an 8-point scale. We are still using the alphabetical grading, A star, A, B, C is the lowest credit. Yeah, don't get E, D, E, F, G are lower passes, U is the worst. Yeah? Okay. And okay, that is I cover the second part of my talk, which is on 21st century skills. I move into also the second part. The first one, A, is 21st century skills. Second one is the Cambridge curriculum, how the Cambridge curriculum will help to inculcate, yeah, and nurture 21st century skills. Yeah. And I come to the last part, the third part, which is the 5 international secondary schools project in Sarawak. And I think this is going to be a game changer for Sarawak. So somebody sent me this article. It was I attended this function actually here at Saradais Sendera Bahai Kuching. So it was on 2nd October 2019. Yang Berhormat the Chief Minister Datuk Patinggi Abang Johari announced Sarawak government is building 5 residential international schools. And it is to bring the smart children of farmers, fishermen, etc. to study in these schools, preparing the children's minds internationally through a curriculum which is of international standard. So this is going to be a very brave and a bold move by the Sarawak government. to implement these 5 international schools for Sarawak State. So if you read this article further, it's not meant to compete with the current international schools in Sarawak. It's only at secondary level, it's residential. And besides offering an international curriculum, this will be headed by the Sarawak Ministry of Education, Science and Technological Research. Yeah? So besides introducing the what they call the Cambridge curriculum, they'll be offering the Cambridge curriculum. They will also be preparing students to sit SPM at the same time, yeah, so that the students can also go into sixth form and study locally after if they're not given a place to study overseas. Yeah? So when we talk about international curriculum, we look at some of the international benchmarks or standards. First of all, it's just highlighting what I said earlier on. There has got to be a global approach to the curriculum. International education, we look at 4 key elements, and I mentioned just now the purpose of international education. But when we talk about international education, we also talk about the 4 key elements. Number 1, you have to have a good curriculum. Number 2, the teaching, the quality of teaching is very important. The third, how do students learn? And the 4th one is equally important on assessment. You cannot have a curriculum without assessment. Yeah? So people say, I work for both exam boards in this country, Cambridge Master Exam Board. We always say, whether you like it or not, assessment is a necessary evil in our education system. Yeah? And when we look at, my colleague put this together, yeah? Education works best when curriculum, teaching, learning, and assessment, these 4 key areas are closely aligned. Yeah? This is a very powerful statement. Yeah? When you align these 4 elements, you have a good curriculum going for you. And I just want to acknowledge the slides that I took from just now regarding 21st century skills, the international curriculum. It is actually prepared by my colleague in Cambridge called Dr. Tristan Stobie. Yeah? So he helped to put these slides together. So I'm just sharing these slides with you all. Yeah? So my colleague in Cambridge, Dr. Tristan Stobie. So in the Sarawak schools, more or less, they have looked at some of the subjects to offer. Year 10 and 11, the science stream. Yeah? I just focus on year 10 and 11. Yeah? So for the sciences, those are going to science stream. We look at English as first language, maths, MS, bio, chem, physics, and then we look at ICT, computer science, global perspectives, art and design, Malay as the first language, Mandarin or Arabic others, physical education, music, literature, design, technology, performing arts as well, drama, dance, and so on. Yeah. So this will be for the science stream, and then for the art stream, for some of the subjects, if you want to go to art stream, first language or second language, English, maths, combined science, geography, history, econs, accounting, ICT, digital literacy, global perspectives, art and design, Malay, first language, Mandarin or Arabic, physical education, music, literature, design, technology, and also performing arts. Yeah. So these are some of the subjects that the committee will be looking into. There's no final decision yet. Yeah? Okay. So I just want to share with you who are the publishers that we work with. It's Collins, Hodder Education, Cambridge UC Press, and Marshall Cavendish for maths and science. Yeah? These are our endorsed publishers. And I just want to share with you Bloom's, this is my favorite taxonomy of behavioral objectives. Yeah? And I first joined the exam syndicate setting national examinations. So we used to have this is called this Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives. Yeah? And it starts from, first one is remember, just recall, understand, apply, and it's broken up into analyze, evaluate, and create. This is something new, yeah, because of information literacy. So when we look at Bloom's taxonomy, there are a few what they call areas outside Bloom's taxonomy other than cognitive domain, communication, collaboration, ICT, literature. So when we look at, if you do assessment, we always talk about the 3 domains in assessment: cognitive, psychomotor, and affective domain, AFF, ECTFE, affective domain. Yeah. So this is Bloom's taxonomy. It's being used by a lot of educationists to kind of like to categorize or to give the different levels of skills, thinking skills, application skills, and so on. Yeah. So it's very helpful diagram, yeah, to understand behavioral or educational objectives. So I'll just end my my talk, yeah, with one little slide here where it is quite amusing, yeah, and it's from T.S. Huxley. I did a bit of research just now, and T.S. Huxley is a great supporter of Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. So he coined, I think, this little diagram. Yeah. So when we're in school, we talk about pedagogy, the curriculum, pedagogy, which means teaching and learning, curriculum, and then you have the assessment. Yeah, you have to assess. From assessment, that is the impact you have on the student. So from assessment, you always get a backwash effect, you know, whether it's positive or negative. But this quotation is quite mind-boggling. Yeah, if we look at it, students work to pass. Students work to pass, not to know. They do pass, and they don't know. It's just some food for thought. Yeah. So with that, this is my contact details. The website cambridgeinternational.org. Lots of information there. Our office, we are located in Petaling Jaya. So I just want to say thank you. Yeah. So with that, I will stop share and will take questions. I'll pass it back to Mr. Wong. Mr. Wong, I pass it back to you. Thank you.